And we welcome you who are with us, those who are with us virtually, as well as those with us in person, as we also welcome especially this evening Shir Chadash, as we begin with the text from Psalm 96, Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. The text can be found in the middle of page 344. We turn back in our prayer book to pages 2 and 3 as we welcome Stephanie Calvo forward to light the Shabbat candles. We rise as we read together from the top of page 3. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Stephanie. You may be seated as we read responsively on page 9. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. On page 20, we sing Lecha Dodi as we welcome Shabbat with great joy and wonder at the opportunity for peace it represents. Page 29. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. But let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence. On the facing page, we rise for the call to prayer. Baruch Hu. Page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ariv Aravim. As we read together at the top of page 33, I also invite Matthew Stevens forward. We read together page 33. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. You may be seated as we chant together page 36.
Ve'ahavta Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווה היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, ובקשרתם לאות על ידיך, וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיהם.
We read responsively on page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, page 40. On page 42, we offer a prayer for peace through the night. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and our coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. On page 44, we sing together, celebrating Shabbat with the words of Vishamru. On page 46, we stand together for the Amidah, beginning on page 46 and continuing over the next several even-numbered pages. Adonai Sifatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha, page 46. You may be seated. Page 55, at the top of the page. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth, together. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We join in song together on page 56 and then continue in silent prayer and reflection. Page 61. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. We join in song together on the facing page. Page 60, Shalom Rav. At this point in our service, we turn to page 253 to offer prayers of healing for those who are ill and for those who are in harm's way around the world. As I offer these names on behalf of our community, I invite those present virtually to add their names of those they are praying for as well. We pray for healing for Jess Weinberg, Lloyd Gerard, Dolores Spector, Adela Seaman, John Garcia, Michael Cohen, Neora Garcia, Wendy Axelrod, Christopher Duran, Steve Borowski, Julian Garcia, Barbara Scher, and Simcha Bat Ruvain Visara Leah. To those names we add. We join together in song, we join together in prayer, page 253. We're at the point in our Torah cycle when we reach, well, next week, we're getting to the end of the book of Exodus. And over the last several parshiot in the book of Exodus, we read in great detail the instructions for the construction of the tabernacle. Interestingly, following one set of instructions, we read about the instruction to observe the Sabbath after the details are relayed to Moses by God about how to construct the tabernacle. But then this week, the construction of the tabernacle is preceded by the commandment to observe the Sabbath. I'm pretty sure that was my child. Safe bet, because I know that there are two of them out there. So at one time we have the construction of the tabernacle followed by the instruction to observe Shabbat. Another time the instruction to observe Shabbat followed by the construction of the tabernacle. It's interesting because in this week's Parsha, first we have Shabbat. Then, in fact, as part of constructing the tabernacle, we have Moses asking the Israelites for a donation of gifts and instructing the construction of the tabernacle to begin with the gifts that are being given. The juxtaposition of the commandments regarding the day of rest and the creation of a space which symbolizes the presence of God in our world is intriguing because it suggests a sense of equivalence, or some kind of relationship at least, that the tabernacle and what it is meant to symbolize is paired with Shabbat and what it is meant to symbolize. The idea that God comes to dwell in the world and that the world is made whole and at peace. That the world is made whole and at peace, and so God comes to dwell in the world. God doesn't need some kind of physical space to be constructed on earth. We recognize that it is our need that leads to the construction of a physical place in which we can go to worship and to offer sacrifice to God, where we can create a space in which we can feel like we are close and blessed by the Holy One. And in fact, the construction of the tabernacle does not create an exception to the obligation of Shabbat, the obligation to rest. Shabbat takes place regardless of the obligation to construct the tabernacle. The holy work of building sacred space must stop every seventh day. And then, following the observance of Shabbat, we can continue to construct the tabernacle. 6 days a week, we worry about the world around us and making it the world it is supposed to be. And then we stop to focus on the world as it is within each and every one of us. And so Shabbat helps us to prepare and to find the strength that we need to do the work over the course of the week. It requires us to take time away, even from the work of constructing God's house. It reminds us that a space is sacred because the people who use it come together to make it so. It is not only beautiful, but the people who gather there bring the presence of holiness with them. And so there are many traditional teachings by the rabbis which point out that the 39 types of work which we must avoid on Shabbat traditionally are all parts of what it takes to construct the tabernacle. Rabbi David Young teaches, even for the modernist, Shabbat is critical in the scope of living a Jewish life. Shabbat is the day that God took to rest because God knows that we have the tendency to get lost in our work. We do not do what we do on the other 6 days. And written in the system is this day, in which we are meant to focus on ourselves and our families. We spend time with each other or alone, relaxing, learning, reading for pleasure, or shifting from the mundane into the holy, even if what we are engaged in is the most important thing to us, and we think we're supposed to be doing it. Even so, Shabbat forces us to stop. According to one rabbinic teaching, we learned that Adam and Eve's sin in the Garden of Eden occurred on the same day as creation. However, out of kindness and mercy, God permitted them to stay in the garden for Shabbat. Remember, humanity is created on the 6th day, then on the 7th day God rested. Humanity is created and sins on the 1st day, but God allows Adam and Eve to remain in the garden for the Sabbath. And according to that teaching, as Shabbat was drawing to a close, Adam began to worry that on his way out of the garden into the world that is not safe, into the world that is real, that he would encounter a snake and be hurt or killed by it. So when Shabbat ended and it was time for Adam and Eve to leave, according to this midrash, God sent a column of fire to protect them on their way. Now, fire is beautiful and fire is dangerous. It can be a blessing, like when we light the Shabbat candles, and it can be a curse. It protects us from the terrors of the dark, but sometimes it is the terror that comes in the dark. Fire has been the tool of evil people since the beginning of cruelty, and at the same time, fire has protected humanity as it protected Adam on his way from the Garden of Eden. In the same way, it protected the Israelites as they wandered the desert. So our text, our tradition reminds us that on Shabbat, kindling a fire is forbidden. Good or bad, blessing or curse, we're not meant to think about the flame for 24 hours, other than the one that burns, reminding us that Shabbat has begun. We're meant to put aside all that flame represents, the questions in our lives, the concerns which hang in the balance, the issues in front of us which force us to face big decisions, anxieties, fears, and apprehensions. The questions, is the flame good or is the flame bad? These things we are meant to put aside and to find respite from our concern, to find rest. And so as we light the Shabbat candles, we recognize it is the end of the lighting for a time. And even as we bask in the glow of the Shabbat candles, we similarly worry about the potential for fire, for destruction. With the joy of warmth and light comes the potential for sorrow. And the benefits of fire are never so great that we ever forget at some point the other shoe could drop and it could all go up in smoke. Many choose to focus on the downside and the hardship of not being permitted to light a fire on Shabbat. But in a way, God's commandment allowed our ancestors the chance to just rest on that special day, on this special day. And even on a day like today, in a world that, like the world is, we're inspired to do the same, to rest, not just our bodies, but our minds, our hearts, to see that there is an opportunity for perfect and complete joy, a joy that is represented by Shabbat, a joy without a downside, a joy without another shoe to drop, a joy of total and complete holiness. even as we gather together today to celebrate Shabbat and to take the time that we need to take to rest for the work ahead. We also recognize there are people around the world who are unable to take that rest because of the situation in which they find themselves. And of course, I am speaking particularly about the people of Ukraine. I think this particularly speaks to most of us because of the history of Jewry and the Jewish story in Ukraine, a place where we have found ourselves again and again struggling against violence, anti-Semitism, pogroms, and hoping and praying again and again that it would finally stop. And yet this week we learned that once again the families of people, of households, the children would no longer be safe. We learned that they would not be safe and that they needed to move as they were being shelled and as bombs were going off around them. And it's a scary time, and we keep them in our minds. We keep those who have died in our hearts, and we keep their loved ones in our prayers. And I offer this prayer written by Joanne Fink on behalf of the people of Ukraine and the situation in which we are all having trouble letting go, I'm sure, and setting aside even as Shabbat begins, even as we pray for them to know a Shabbat and the entire world to know a Shabbat of peace. And so I offer this prayer by Joanne Fink. Source of blessing, we seek the comfort of believing that everything will be all right, even in the face of insurmountable odds. Quiet the fears that threaten to deafen us. Grant us shlemut, the inner peace we so desperately seek. Help us remain calm and reach out to those in need. May this horrific situation be diffused swiftly with minimal casualties. Bless our world leaders with the ability to work together for the greater good and the wisdom to make wise decisions during this turbulent time. Bless the people of all nations with the desire, strength, and courage to create a world based on justice and filled with peace. May the words of Isaiah, "Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore," become true in our day, in this very hour. Source of goodness, shine your healing light on us and all those in Ukraine who we hold in our hearts. Shelter us, shield us, show us the path to peace for ourselves, our family, our entire world. As together we say, Amen. On Shabbat, despite whatever might be going on, we're meant to feel a sense of joy at possibility and opportunity. We lift up the cup and we turn to Kiddush, to celebrate Shabbat, to celebrate joy and the possibilities of joy and peace, as we welcome Lori Gaiman forward to offer the words which can be found on page 5. Just a moment as we read it in English first.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who finds favor with us, sanctified us with mitzvot. In love and favor, you made the holy Shabbat our heritage as a reminder of the work of creation. As first among our sacred days, it recalls the exodus from Egypt. You chose us and set us apart from the peoples. In love and favor, you have given us your holy Shabbat as an inheritance.
Please rise.
Share
Good. Page 282, Aleinu L'Shabeach. You may be seated. Page 289. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan, yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 294. If you are with us virtually, I invite you to share the name of those you are praying for this Shabbos, those who are remembering this Shabbos. If you hear the name of a loved one, I invite you to rise. We mourn the recent death of Bernice Edelstein, Brandon Fernandez, Betty Stein, Luis Alberto Martinez, Adriana Peralta, Beverly Lubetkin, Muriel Tucker, Gerald Smith, Janet Lieberman Duke. This anniversary week of their passing, we observe yahrzeit for Dora Becker, Tina Feinberg Bernard, Marta Blumenthal, Joan Clements Bryant, Aaron Cohen, Bernard Drottman, Abe Ehrlich, Albert Feinberg, Annette Fearman, Sadie Levinson Feiner, Rose Marie Friedman, Robert Lyle Furman, Deborah Trogman Given, Nathan Goldman, Evelyn Pearlstein Goodman, Joseph Hillel Goodman, Leonard A. Goodman Jr., Rose Greenberg, Nathan Lewis Harris, Schuyler Sky Shank Haskell, Rose Kaufman, Rose Davis Kaiser, Gussie Kligman, Albert Matthias Tito Crone, Heyman Krupp, Mary Bellman Long, Louis Marcus, Lee Mason, Florence Morgan, Bernard Ordenstein, Anna Epstein Rosenberg, Molly W. Schick, Herman Lyle Sheeman, Max Trogman, Jean Tucker, Irving Tucker, Charlene Unger, George Weiss, Nancy McGinnis Whitehead, Rose Wilenzik, Jerome J. Wolf. Are there any names to add? We remember them. We remember all of those who have died in the last week and at this time in years past as victims of terror and tragedy. We remember all of those who have no one to say Kaddish for them as we offer the words of Mourner's Kaddish standing together. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, B'alma Divra Churute v'amlich Malchute, B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, B'agala uvizman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam ulamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei l'kudusha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. As together we say, amen. You may be seated. At this time, we welcome Temple President Stuart Schwartz forward to offer announcements.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good Shabbos. It's wonderful having everybody here tonight. I'd like to especially thank our greeters this evening, Vladi Kranovich and Susan Jaffe, as well as our past president, Lori Gaiman, for being on the bima with us tonight. To Shir Hadash and to Elvira Spector for doing such a beautiful job tonight in leading us in prayer. Thank you so very much for being here as well and for leading us in such a beautiful way. I would like to thank our Shabbat sponsors, our streaming sponsors, the Rott Wine family in memory of Nathan Goldman, Bonnie Colt in memory of Deborah Gibbon, Carol and Jimmy Parker in memory of Lee Mason, David and Moshe Littebauer in memory of Sky Haskell, and our Beam of Flower sponsors, Susie and Eddie Goldman in memory of Nathan Goldman, Carol and Jimmy Parker in memory of Lee Mason, Toby and John Pervin in memory of Jean and Irving Tucker, Lynn Crone in memory of Albert Tito Crone, Leonard Nardo Goodman, and Evelyn Sita Goodman, Bonnie Colton in memory of Deborah Gibbon, David and Moshe Littebauer in memory of Joan Bryant, and Liz, Jim, and Leah Levy and Eleanor Goodman in memory of Nardo Goodman. Our Kiddush sponsors, Carol and Jimmy Parker in memory of Lee Mason, David and Moshe Littebauer in memory of Nancy Whitehead, and Sue Bendlin in memory of Albert Feinberg. Torah study tomorrow at 9:30. Both in Zalanka Hall and in our temple Zoom room, followed by Shabbat services, also online and live here in temple at 10:30. The religious school will be at 9:30 on this coming Sunday. There will be no adult education through the month of March, and we'll rejoin after that. Is that correct, Rabbi? Good, okay. Thursday, March 3, please join us for Educating the Enemy, a talk with author Jana Perillo. This event is sponsored also by El Paso Holocaust Museum and Study Center at 6:30, March 3rd, Temple Mount Sinai. Check your weekly email. It ought to be a wonderful presentation by her on educating, how would you describe it, Rabbi?
Children of Nazi scientists who came to the El Paso region following World War II.
Thank you. And Purim Carnival in March 6th, followed by March 16th, a Purim celebration. There's information on our Kala on May 27th through the 29th, back where the books are stacked. Please pick it up and plan on joining us at the Tonka Verde Ranch in Tucson, Arizona. It ought to be a great event. And Noel Meyer, who is here, can provide you with additional information if you're interested in attending that as well. Don't forget, April 16th, we'll be having a second Seder for Passover. And the Jewish Food Festival is the following week, April 26th. As you can see, there is a lot going on at Temple, and we encourage you to participate in as much of it as you can. Rabbi, thank you very much for your thoughts and comments today. Obviously, we've recognized and viewed a very broken world this last week, but that doesn't mean that any of us, all of us, should not continue to try to make the world whole. And we wish good thoughts and prayers to those in Ukraine who are suffering from the battles that they're fighting this weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
Gratitude also to Stephen Jackson. One note, slight correction. I believe the food festival is the 24th, right? 24th. It's the Sunday. It's the Sunday in the 20-something area of April. We'll conclude our service on page 321, Adon Olam. And following that, we invite you to join us for Kiddush and Motzi, and hopefully you are planning on staying for dinner, and that will take place in Schwartz Hall as well. If you're able to rise, please do as we conclude in song. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. May God give strength to our people. Adonai yavarech et amo b'shalom. May God bless all people all over the world with a world at peace. Shabbat shalom.